All the time, we have startup founders on the show that have come out of stealth. They kind of work behind the scenes for a year, raise money discreetly, and then say, this is what we do. You're a venture firm coming out of stealth. Why so discreet?
So what we're launching today is an app called Pari Passu, which is a members-only investor network that allows founders and operators and accredited tech enthusiasts to back leading startups within SaaS, as you mentioned, e-commerce tech, consumer tech, but really alongside leading global venture capital firms. And so for us, as founders backing founders, we know it takes a village. And we know that to get a company to the scale that you need to succeed and to exit, that village is supercharged by having operators that have been in the trenches themselves, that have created themselves, that know how to roll up their sleeves and support.
Right.
That's the village that we want our founders to have. And we're launching Pari Passu to create the world's most powerful network of founder support and unlock access to highly competitive venture capital deals, but for operators that can put in as little as 10K.
Well, what you say, it takes a village, but there's an element of exclusivity to it because it's members only. Could you explain that part to me?
Yes, and so the members only piece is really because we want to make sure we're supercharging the value out on cap tables. And so focusing first on letting on founders, operators that are VP level and up, people that can really add a tremendous amount of value, because if we're writing $1 million check into a company, and let's say it's 20 people behind the scenes that are writing checks from 10K, checks at 2 million, sometimes historically, we want those people to be able to be highly value add. We want those people to be able to have a network for an introduction if a company wants to speak to a brand, right? If a company wants to navigate the right equity package for a certain hire, right? And I think that village, being operators themselves, ends up being tremendously impactful for the success of these companies.
A kind of phenomenon, I guess, that we've covered on the show over the last 12 months is the appetite of the everyday investor, let's call them retail investor, to get particularly into growth stage companies like SpaceX and OpenAI, right? There was suddenly a turnaround in what is normally an illiquid market. And I wonder if through Pari Passu, you think you'll see the same sort of engagement at the early stage where people that traditionally just cannot or won't invest in startups through venture funds now can.
Yeah, I think part of the bottleneck is if you want to invest in a venture fund, typically it's a $250K minimum check, even if you do have access, right? And so a lot of the founders and operators that are still building, whose cash is more sitting in the form of equity, for that future win, they're not able to participate in that mechanism. And so Pari Passu is really opening the doors to allow those operators to be able to invest in a really accessible access point, but building a highly curated ecosystem.
I introed you saying you're going to invest at the intersection of basically everything. But I wonder, is there one main area that you're really excited about? We just have 30 seconds.
Sure. So I would say we have a pretty unfair advantage in terms of e-commerce SaaS. Across the partnership, we have lived many lives in that ecosystem. My two partners sold the largest Shopify agency in that space. So you think about having access to hundreds of brand CEOs and the e-commerce tech selling into it. That's who you want on your cap table. But I've spent the better part of 2 decades in both the venture and founder ecosystem alongside my partners as well. And so the deep relationships that you can only forge over that amount of time are what give us access to some of the most highly competitive deals in venture.